Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are now. This is Cop Facts, and this is lesson number 8, and we're going to talk about policies and procedures. Every department, no matter how big or how small, has to have written policies and procedures. The profession is so complex, and the liability issues are so great that there can't be just general guidelines that everybody's going to go by. When you get on a department, you're going to see that there's very specific policies and procedures that you have to follow. The administration of any department has to be assured that each and every officer, detective, who works basically unsupervised most of the time, is following those policies and procedures. And this goes all the way up to the administration of the city, the mayor, the city council, those kind of things. They have to be assured that cops on the street are not abusing anyone's rights. So a lot of the policies and procedures have to do with just that, the rights of the public and how you treat the public and how you do your daily job. Most policies will start out with a mission statement, and almost always that mission statement will obviously address serving and protecting the public. Usually it's a sentence or two. Sometimes ethics are mentioned in that mission statement. But that's where policy and procedures start, is with a mission statement. Now, usually maybe the next section, I can't say usually, but very often the next part of a policy procedure manual will talk about the organization of the department. And it'll spell out, the administration portion, the investigation portions, and the patrol section, as well as special units and what their duties are, what the administration, investigations, patrol, and special operations units, duties, and responsibilities are. It will also spell out the chain of command, how you deal with your superiors. You don't want to go around anybody or you get yourself in trouble. So that's all spelled out, pretty regular stuff that everybody would assume is in place. Employee conduct is obviously going to be addressed, and that has to do a lot with your ethical standards. You have a lot of discretion, whether you're on the street in uniform or in a special unit or a detective. All police officers have a lot of discretion in everything they do. The policy and procedure manual will give you guidance as to how to use that discretion. It's just a real good guide. You need to know it, the policy and procedures of your department, inside and out. It will deal with use of force, and we'll deal with that in another class, but it'll talk about everything from just contacting someone, detaining someone, to the point where you have to put hands on, or even right up to deadly force. It will address things like conflict of interest, what you do outside of your normal duties, if you have another business or another job, or you engage with people that are considered undesirable people. For an example, had an officer years ago that dated some dancers from a strip club off duty. but probably not somebody that they should be dating. It could be a conflict of interest. That's just a generic example. Of course, it's going to deal with things like cowardice and your work performance overall, all under employee conduct. And then we get into discipline, how your department is going to deal with discipline. And when you violate these policies and procedures, then comes the discipline, then comes the supervisor, or worst case scenario, internal affairs, or the prosecutor for criminal charges. So when it comes to discipline, it can be something as simple as a counseling session with your sergeant in his office or her office, or it could be remedial training. It could be a verbal warning, written warning, some type of loss of pay and suspension for 3 to 5 days or more, right up to include termination from the department. And it could result in criminal charges with the prosecutor. So that's all going to be spelled out under discipline. Now, the policy is also going to spell out your rights. And these come under civil service rules, basically. And it talks about how you have a right to reasonable pay, promotions, vacation time, sick time, how you deal with grievances if you do have a problem and you want to challenge that. It'll explain how you can file a grievance if you think you've been treated unfairly. And that's usually done through probably the next section, which would be department correspondence. The policy will direct how you communicate with other members of the department officially. Obviously, you're going to interact with them all the time, but on an official document, there'll be a memo that you will use, and it'll tell you how that's directed and how it's written and that type of thing. And of course, that is something you don't want to break the chain of command with, which your policy has already dealt with. If you're going to write a memo, it probably needs to go through your immediate supervisor, which is usually a sergeant. It's going to explain basic procedures for all the different units. Let's take the patrol section, which is where everyone's going to start. It's going to explain to you that you will show up on time, you'll be in uniform, you'll have a certain type of haircut, that type of thing. It'll explain that you will be doing routine patrol in your sector, that you will respond to calls from dispatch, that you will investigate suspicious activity, that you will initiate reports when needed, and explain when and where, or I should say why, you would do those reports. It's going to tell you when you need to call a specialized unit in, and we'll go into that like right now. Like a specialized unit might be a detective from property crimes. Let's say you have a major theft from a store or something. Tens of thousands of dollars missing or something like that. You're probably going to need some help with a case like that. So you may, depending on hours of the day, that type of thing, you may call for a property detective to respond to your scene to assist you to make sure you don't miss anything that needs to be done. Or you may just do the best you can. As we've learned in patrol procedures, you'll do your reports. We talked about report writing. And you will just turn those reports in like we talked. And eventually that'll be taken over by the property detectives, hopefully. Or it could be a situation where you need a canine to search something. You may need a SWAT team. You may be in a hot situation. So the special operations units part of the policy will tell you as a patrol officer when and why you would call those units out. Bomb squad is another one that you might be thinking about. And there'll be procedures when you find a suspicious package or someone does, how you deal with that so nobody gets hurt. Handling of prisoners is going to always be addressed, or handling of anyone for that matter, but in particular the handling of prisoners. Right from when you contact someone that you're going to detain, how you can detain them, how long you can detain them, why you can detain them, what is required, right up to the point where you make an arrest. And of course, the probable cause issue comes in, and we've talked about that a little bit before. But keep in mind, we also dealt with the U.S. Constitution, and keep in mind that everyone, whether they're a suspect and they're in custody or they're just a citizen on the street, they have certain rights. Specifically with someone arrested, you want to remember the right to free speech. You want to remember the search and seizure issues, the Fourth Amendment. You're going to want to remember due process, that, you have to present probable cause in writing to a judge to actually arrest somebody for a felony. So, or a misdemeanor. You still have to have the probable cause. But keep in mind those amendments we talked about that are important to law enforcement, and that'd be the First, Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments. So each of these classes kind of overlays with another class, if you're starting to notice, if you're following these, and I hope you are, because I'm giving you a view of what you're going to be exposed to in a police academy. The policies and procedures is also going to deal with what you do off duty. We've talked about that. It's going to talk about when you call those specialized units, like I said. And I guess what I was getting at there was, if it's 2 a.m. and you have a theft of some type that you think detectives are going to have to take over with, you're probably not going to call them out on that. Now, if you have a serious assault or a death or an attempted murder, that type of thing, yeah, you're going to call the major crimes unit out or the homicide unit out. It doesn't matter if it's 2 or 3 a.m. And I worked that unit for a long time, and it seems like a lot of those incidents happen at 1 or 2 a.m. So that's just part of their life, and they understand it. So, policies and procedures. It dictates just about everything you do, from the way you dress right up to deadly force. So, again, no matter how big or how small your department is, you're going to have policies and procedures. You need to know them inside and out, upside down. And it's all computerized nowadays. In most departments, you can just click into your computer and get that information right in your cruiser or whatever. If not, if it's still in written form, you should have that policy manual with you at all times in your bag. So that's about it for policies and procedures. I would just say again that truth will get you a long ways in law enforcement. And in this situation, if you just follow the policies and procedures that your department puts in written form for you, you'll have a great career. But if you fudge on that and start violating that policy, you're on your own. You could find yourself in a civil suit or even a criminal action with no help. You'd be writing checks for help from an attorney or something. So, very important to abide by policies and procedures. So, this is Cop Facts. If you're enjoying these lessons, please hit the like and please subscribe. And I will continue and be back very soon with the next lesson. Have a good day.